All right. So I gotta talk about this. Um, it's funny to me because I think there's a lot of really important information here, even though the story is really petty. So you might be aware that recently, uh, on Sunday, there was a hashtag that that was started on Twitter called hashtag Boycott Star Wars 7, and it was basically making the claim that the movie was, anti-white. It promotes white genocide and a bunch of really ridiculous shit. For example, a tweet by uh, End Cultural Marxism read hashtag boycott Star Wars 7 because it's an anti white propaganda promoting white genocide. Another Twitter account calling itself Captain Confederacy similarly griped that SJWs, social justice warriors, complain about white artists misappropriating culture created by blacks, but then celebrate a non white Star Wars. Yet another complaint read that the movie should be boycotted because it's nothing more than social justice propaganda piece that alienates its core audience of young white males. So, a few people started this hashtag, and naturally, it created a great deal of outrage on Twitter and lots of media outlets, the BBC, The Guardian, Hollywood Reporter, Al Jazeera is making a video about it like right now. All of these spaces, the Mary Sue, Rebecca Watson is who's an individual, feminists, Black Lives Matter folks are all coming out of the woodwork to respond to this, and they're all basically saying, they're responding to it in unifying against the terrible white supremacist, movement that's coming out trying to boycott Star Wars 7. And one of the reasons is, because apparently Boyega, who's, the African American kid in the film, they didn't expect him to be a main character, is the story that we're being told. Now, why is this important? It sounds like a bunch of racists are trying to like boycott a film because the main character is black. But the thing is, it was started by a bunch of trolls. On 4chan, there was a handful of trolls that decided that they were going to make this hashtag. Now, 4chan and trolls on the chans, as it were, they have a tendency of doing these kinds of things where they basically say, well, let's see if we can get this thing to trend and if we can get people to respond to it. This is like the science of trolling. Like they did the thing called Piss for Equality about 2 weeks ago to see if they can get feminists to piss their pants in the name of equality. And it fucking worked, okay? This is how, and this is something that should be something that people can see through and say, well, that sounds ridiculous. I'm not gonna bite. That sounds like, bullshit to me. But this is the mentality of the world that we live in today, where a troll can make something that sounds absurd, put it out there, have like fucking Twitter handle names like End Cultural Marxism or Captain Confederacy, which sounds so ridiculously over the top. Like I'm surprised one guy didn't make himself Cracker McCrackerton, and make a ridiculous hashtag that, with a ridiculous message that most people would not be in favor of, which most people were not, which only shows you how not racist our culture is. But the people who glom onto it and they basically get outraged, they get offended, are the ones that are basically saying, look, this is proof of racism, and we're going to go after these people. And we're going to, point them out and spotlight them, and let's retweet this. Let's talk about this more. Let's have a conversation. Here comes the media, and they're going to sweep in, and they're not going to check their sources. They're not going to try to find out if this is a hoax. They're not going to try and find out if this is a lie or if this is a troll attempt. They're just going to run with it. They don't even check. This is journalism today. This is what journalism is. Like basically any prank or hoax that comes out of the internet, if it is deemed to be offensive and it's going to drive enough traffic to the websites, they're going to jump all over it. And they did. They're giving it more attention than the trolls originally had when they made it. And they're probably pissing their pants right now with laughter at how everyone is essentially dancing to their tune that they created. This is how easily manipulated we are. And it comes down to the way that these trolls can affect our feelings so easily. I'm a little, flabbergasted that the reaction would be this way. I'm not entirely shocked, but there is a part of me that says, why don't we have more critical thinkers? Why don't we have people that say, this sounds dubious? I don't know. This sounds a little too far fetched. There's a part of me, unfortunately, that thinks that we're so ready to believe that white people are racist that when we hear the message that some racist white people came out and did something, we just go along with it. We just say, yeah, that must be the case. Ironically, if we learn that a person who's not white, had done something like was shot by police even though he charged a man or committed a crime or whatever, we don't want to see that, even though that is, like, even if you go through the autopsy and you go through the police reports and you go through the evidence and you look it over multiple times and it comes out at the end of the day the person was a criminal, or they had done something, they charged a cop, or they tried to take the gun away from him and it ended with the man losing his life. We still, to this day, there are many, many, many people who are like, oh, he was killed, he was innocent of that crime and that should not have happened. But all it takes is a troll to even imply, like using a phony account and making a phony tweet that essentially was there specifically to incite emotional reactions and outrage. And we buy into it immediately. We say, yep, racist white people did that. And it's a problem. It's an epidemic problem. Even though the majority of people talking about this were denouncing it or ignoring it. I mean, most people were just getting outraged. But like people like me, I was just laughing my ass off. Because this is how we react. We're just showing them how right they are by doing that. We're basically saying, yes, you're right. We're emotional. We overreact. We immediately buy into it. Yes, racist white people that love Star Wars, that don't want black people in their films. Yes, this is a thing. This is a thing that happens, and it's very popular, and it's a very common opinion. It's so common, in fact, that when you tell me it happens, I don't find it dubious, and I don't find it silly. I find it insulting, because I can never be insulted. You're not allowed to offend me. Now, I want to read you another. Now, I thought originally I did this on the Honey Badger show already. And, we talked a little bit about it. And I do think, a lot of the points that we brought up were absolutely true. But there's something else that happened. This is why I'm making this video. Another story came out from a website called projectcasting.com. And it was shared by a friend of mine on Facebook. And this is the story, okay? Man kills himself because Star Wars main character is black. Now I'm going to read the story, okay? All right. The hashtag boycott Star Wars 7 has gone viral, and many people are pissed off that John Boyega has such a major role in the upcoming Star Wars Force Awakens. All right, now, how do we know that many people are pissed off about John Boyega? If I remember correctly, when the first trailer came out and they showed him removing the helmet as a stormtrooper, and breathing heavy, because for some fucking reason, every shot we see of him, he's like sweating like he's got asthma and he's breathing heavy as hell, but like whatever. I guess he's going to be doing a lot of physicality in the film. Most people's questions were that they were under the impression that stormtroopers were clone troopers and that it would have been like some, Kiwi dude under there or whatever the hell that guy was from, like New Zealander guy, right? And when they saw that it was a black guy, they were like, what? That doesn't make sense. But that was essentially like once the explanation came out that, shortly after the events of episode 3, the clones were all like cut off and they had to replace them with real life people as stormtroopers. Then I think for the most part, people were like, oh, okay, well, that's the story then. Whatever, who cares? And yeah, I mean, that doesn't mean there were no racists. Of course there are. There always will be. But for the most part, we ignore them because they don't represent us as a people. They don't represent the worldview. They represent a very small group of people that we know have backwards thinking and we know are not worth our time. So, So yeah, I don't know about this. Many people are pissed off that John Boyega has such a major role because that sounds dubious to me. Now, according to Newswatch 33, authorities are reporting that a 53-year-old Caucasian man was found dead in Charlotte, North Carolina, with a suicide note that read, "Make America White Again." All right, let's look at that for a second. Because when I read that sentence, I laughed, okay? So we're looking at an old Caucasian man, so they had to let us know he's white. They had to. Like, I mean, they needed us to know that he was white so that we can further confirm that he had to be racist. That helps. And he was found dead in Charlotte, North Carolina. So he happened to, in all of the cities, in all of the states, in all of America, he had to be found dead in the one city where the more recent race-motivated shooting happened, which was a real shooting done by a real racist that had real problems. But we had to, so it just so happened that everything else, it was the same city in the same state, and it was a white man too. And his suicide note read, "Make America White Again," which it sounds so ridiculous. I can't believe that people would just immediately buy into it, like right off the bat. It sounds like an Onion article already, but it gets better. Monday, during Monday Night Football's halftime show, Disney revealed the Star Wars trailer for the new Star Wars Episode 7. When the trailer was initially released on December 2014, Boyega was quickly dismissed as a small character playing the role of a stormtrooper. I don't think anybody would do that. Why would you even show an actor, Boyega, who was in the film The Block, by the way, which is a good movie, you should totally check it out, and say, "Oh yeah, no, he's just playing a stormtrooper"? Why would you even put that guy in the movie if he's playing such a small role? We know he's not playing a small role. Don't lie to us about that. We knew that from the beginning that he was playing a major role. This is not a secret to anybody. So that's stupid. However, many fans, especially those who appear to have racist views, expressed how upset they were with Boyega as the main character in Star Wars 7 on Twitter. Well, technically, Boyega's not, as far as I know, he's not the main character. He's playing alongside the female lead, who unfortunately, I can't remember her name. So it's either her or him. We don't know yet which one of them is the main character. But I'm guessing that they're both equally important. Or really close. It's kind of like Luke and Han, or Luke and Leia, or whatever. According to reports, Bobby Joe, 53, of Charlotte, North Carolina, was known by friends as a hardcore Star Wars fan. So the guy, the racist white dude from North Carolina, Charlotte, where the racist shooting happened, his name was Bobby Joe. Okay. His wife, Sarah, was also a Star Wars fan, attended Comic-Con every year dressed up as stormtroopers. However, Mrs. Garrison, that was her last name, would find her husband unresponsive with a suicide note saying, "Make America White Again." According to Newswatch 33, when the EMS and police arrived at the scene, Mr. Garrison was pronounced dead. Officer Jenkins would collect the suicide note from Mrs. Garrison. The officer, his name was Jenkins, which is another super southern sounding name. Like seriously, this is all stereotypes. She would later point out that the suicide letter Garrison had an issue with the main character of Star Wars. She would later point out that in the suicide letter, Garrison had an issue with the main character of Star Wars being black. So he makes a quote, "If white people aren't wanted in Star Wars, and our money must not be either. I'm tired of seeing Enners taking over great white films." Like Star Wars is a great white film. "I cannot live in a world being overrun by blacks. Sorry, Sarah." In another section of the letter, boycott Star Wars 7, it read, "Boycott Star Wars 7 because Disney decided to use affirmative action instead of the Force." Another ridiculous. Why would you, if your suicide letter, why would you write that? They use affirmative action instead of the Force? It sounds ridiculous. All right, and then they give you some information about the film. So what? So, why am I bringing this up? Turns out this was a hoax. This never happened. There was no man, there was no Bobby Joe, there was no Officer fucking Cletus Jenkins, there was no suicide. Did you notice that in the article they didn't mention how he suicided himself? They just said that he was found dead. They didn't even, like, as far as I know, he fucking died from racist hate. I mean, that's all I can imagine. Like, that's basically how it turned out. So they had to, like, come out with an addendum, which thank you for doing that, projectcasting.com. That's like more than most media journalist sites would do these days. That basically says hoax, a man did not actually commit suicide because the main character in Star Wars was black. So why am I pointing this out? This is the media today. This is how the news media works. We have stuff going on in Russia with Putin. We have stuff going on in Syria. We have refugees crisis all over the world, right? Or in Europe. We have a plane. I don't think we found it yet. We have shit going on everywhere. All right? That's way more important. And the media, without even doing any fact checking, without doing any research, without making sure that they have like the right story, immediately jumps on a story which is really stupid, because this is the reason why I'm making this. They want people's outrage. They want you guys to be mad. They want you guys to click on their website, and they want you guys to argue about it. And they have found that this is more profitable for them than doing actual journalism. They don't deserve your clicks. We need to exercise stoicism, some degree of critical thought. If you hear something that sounds ridiculous and it's not in the Onion, you might want to double check the facts, or at least wait until more news comes out before you get all pissy and mad at the racist white man that wants to take away your Star Wars, because that's not happening. And I'm not saying there are no racists. Obviously there are. They exist. But I don't think they, like, even if I tried to put myself in the mind of race, if I tried to, and they weren't completely idiotic, I cannot for the life of me see what the benefit of going on Twitter and showing your racism to the world is, because it is generally frowned upon by everybody. I mean, you can look at the reaction to the hashtag by most people, and that should tell you all by itself that most people of every color, of every creed, from every part of the world does not tolerate that. Now, I would have just ignored it because it's so dumb. And if we had ignored it, the trolls wouldn't have made any ground with it. But you see, if I could put myself in the mind of the trolls for a moment, I would imagine that their whole point was to see how much ground this would pick up, even if people found out that it was a lie. Even if people found out that it couldn't have been the case. When my friend on Facebook shared this, I told him it was a hoax. I told him flat out, I said, this is not real. This isn't true. And he still said, you honestly think that that there are no racists that are trying to boycott this movie? And I'm like, maybe somewhere, but in this case, no. These are trolls. And I even said some of them were black. Some of them were people of color that said, we want to do this thing because let's get some lulz out of it. That's why trolls do shit. For the lulz. And often, like, they want to prove a point. They want to say, look, this is how easily people get outraged. This is how emotional people get. All we got to do is write this, a couple of racist tweets, put them out there, and then watch the magic happen. It's like watching a culture grow. And that's all you got to do. This is how easily influenced people are. How emotional people are. Our ability to maintain our emotional faculties is compromised. I mean, like, as on a societal level, people are just ready to be mad about everything. And the journalists, they feed right into that shit. They know. That's how they make their money. So I said, it was a hoax. There are no racist white people involved. In fact, the hashtag was started by people of color. His response was, no racist white people involved. Do you honestly think that a black person or other ethnicities started the boycott Star Wars hashtag? I don't know or care where you get that BS from, but do yourself a favor and keep it. So basically, even though I told him some of the people who were involved in making the tag were black, he basically said, that's impossible. It's impossible because it was racist. And apparently black people, not even for fun, not even as trolls, not even to pull a prank, would ever do something like that. It's amazing. I mean, like it's basically to the. It's like saying, let's say this was about men and women. If a phony article that was started by a bunch of trolls on 4chan, and let's say some of them were female, and they said this would be really funny, and they put out a story about like an MRA neckbeard like fedora wearing misogynist, who basically choked himself on his own fedora. Um, to kill himself because Star Wars had a prominent female character in it, and he said he didn't want to live in a world where women are ruling it, you know, had come out, and they made like the hashtag for it, and everyone bought into it, and feminists bought into it. And I was talking to a feminist online, and I told her, I said specifically, the hashtag was started by women. Some of them were female that did it. This is why we know it's a hoax. And she said that's impossible because it's misogynistic. And a woman would never do anything misogynistic ever, even as a joke, even as a troll attempt. I'm, yes, women, blacks, whites, Hispanics, trans people, gays, bisexual people, all kinds of people from all walks of life, from all over the world, are capable of doing a troll. Yes, any of them can do it. It's not a superpower that only white men that are cisgendered and straight have. But I think that that is the most telling part of all of this, isn't it? That's the most telling part. So, anyway, I don't want to take up any more of your time. Thank you for listening, and see you next time.